Good morning, everyone. We'll start in about 30 seconds. Good morning, and welcome to today's State and Federal Program Directors meeting. Before we get started, I wanted us to take a look at this slide here and take a moment to dream. And so if we look at these pictures, you can see various places. And so our question to you this morning is, if you could take your dream vacation this winter break, where would you go? So again, place that in your chat. Love to know. All expenses paid. Where would you go? Ah, Germany. Yes. Ooh, awesome. Yep. Egypt, definitely on my bucket list. And Ireland too. Great. Ah, going home is always good. Awesome. It's interesting. Most of our dream vacations are out of the United States. Oh, funny. Well, great. Well, hopefully one day your dream will come true and you'll be able to take that vacation. I'm Adrienne Balcazar, and I'd like to introduce the LCAP State and Federal Programs Unit today. We have Debbie Cano, Helen Choi, Laurel Estrada, Augustine Garcia, Rachel Garcia, and Jeannie Keith. And with us today, our support staff, April Grease. To access today's presentation, we ask you to click on the link in the chat, and this will take you directly to the slides. If you use the link at the top of this slide, it will take you to our Canvas page. And here the presentation can be accessed through the icon as shown here, as well as the agenda and any resources that we have shared during this meeting. Today's topics for this meeting include a migrant education program. We're really excited about that one, as well as all the other topics. We have the Consolidated Application and Reporting System, the winter release, capital expenditure and equipment removal requirements for Title I. We have federal program requirements, comprehensive school safety plan, the LREBG interim expenditure report, and the LCAP update. As usual, please place your questions in the chat box and we will answer any simple questions if we can. And we will always follow up with the written responses in a Q&A that will be emailed to each of you. We are recording today's training and we'll post this on our website. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Myrna Miranda Welch, who will share about the Migrant Education Program. And for those of you that have been here for a while, you might recognize her as she used to be one of our team members here in the LCAP State and Federal Programs unit. And so we're really excited that you are here today to share with everyone the wonderful things that are happening in the Migrant Ed program. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Myrna Miranda Welch.
Thank you, Adrienne. Yes, it's wonderful to be back with our state and federal program directors. I see a lot of familiar names in the Zoom meeting. But yes, very excited. As Adrienne mentioned, my name is Myrna, and I am the project director for the Migrant Education Program here at the LA County Office of Education. We are part of a state system, and we're part of Region 10. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the agenda for our presentation, reviewing the purpose and the goal of the migrant program, the eligibility structure, and also the current demographics in our county, and then the programs and services that we offer. And as Adrienne mentioned, we have a great variety of programs, and they're all free for our students. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So the MigrantEd program is a federally funded program. If you could just give me a thumbs up if you've heard of the migrant education program so I can kind of get a sense. I hope some of our districts are in the room, some of our participating districts. Wow, I see a few thumbs up. Yes, very good. So essentially, the purpose of the migrant education program is to support the children of migratory workers, migratory agricultural workers. And you can see here the definition as outlined in ESSA. Um, Basically, what we hope to do is to ensure that our migrant education students are able to reach the same academic standards that all students are expected to meet. We want to be able to provide services that address their unique needs as migratory children. And our goal is to ensure that they graduate from high school. So once they graduate from high school or earn a GED, then they're exited from the MigrantEd program. So we'll go on to the next slide. And this is the definition of a migratory child. And I know we hear a lot in the news about migrants crossing the border. So a lot of times our program is confused with the migrants. So I wanted to really focus on the definition. So for this program, it's very specific. It is based on the work. It's based on the work that the youth do or that the parents of the children are engaged in. So it serves children ages 3 to 21 or until they graduate from high school or earn a GED. They must have a qualifying move within the last 3 years. And a qualifying move is a move where they move to do or engage in agricultural work, including fishing and forestry. And then the eligibility is for 3 years. And important to note, it is not based on their immigration status. It is all based on their work, on the work that the families do. And in California, as you know, we have a lot of agriculture. So a lot of our families move, let's say, to Fresno or to Oxnard to do the work, and then they come back. So LA tends to be their home base, and that's how they're able to qualify because they move as a family to engage in that work, and then they come back. And that is considered a qualifying move if they move across district boundaries. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. This is the structure here in Region 10 in LA County. We do have 17 participating MigrantEd districts, which means they actually receive MigrantEd funds to implement their own migrant program. And I don't know if any of our districts are here. If you could just give us a thumbs up if you are one of those districts listed there: ABC, Long Beach, LA, Norac La Mirada. And then, of course, our consortium in the Antelope Valley. And then we have our smaller districts, the MOU districts: El Monte City, Hacienda La Puente, Linwood, Mountain View, and Roland. Our MOU districts have smaller numbers, so most of the services are offered through the regional office, through our office here. Across the state, there are 20 regions. We are Region 10. And then we also have some districts that are not participating districts. They don't receive migrant funds, but they do have migrant students. So those are the districts that you see with the blue arrow, from Alhambra to William S. Hart. So those districts actually have MigrantEd students, and we serve them here at the regional office through a variety of, by offering them a variety of services. We'll go to the next slide. So currently, this is our latest data on our migrant students. The data window closes in September. So in September, we grew actually 11% from the prior year. So we have now 5,785 students in LA County. And here you see most of our students are in LA Unified. It's our largest district with the largest migrant enrollment, and then ABC Unified. And then our smaller districts, as you can see there, have small groups up until Antelope Valley is a consortium, and they have about 500 students. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So what are the services they receive? These are the categories of services that are offered, all free for our families and for our districts. So during the regular school year, we offer the Youth Summit, we offer a speech and debate program, and a variety of other services. I'll show a little more about each of those services in the following slides. We also want to engage our students during the summer. So we do a lot of summer programs at the universities. We have partnerships with several universities in Southern California. Our students and families really need a lot of support in health and wellness. So we do offer that as well. And we build the capacity of our families through a variety of parent engagement services and parent leadership. And we also offer professional development for our migrant ed teachers. We'll go to the next slide. So these are the regional programs that we offer. They're virtual programs because they are offered to all students across the county. We have a math innovation course, young writers, and then also an ELA intervention, in addition to our speech and debate program, which is also part of the state program. And we'll go to the next slide. So this is the last year's competitors. Region 10 competed at the state level. We took 34 students and overall came home with 16 trophies and second place statewide. So very proud of our students and the hard work they put into their speech and debate program. We'll go to the next slide. And these are just some of the programs that we offer in the summer. We've partnered, as I said, last year with Cal State San Marcos. We did a tall ships adventure with our students, as well as Cal State San Bernardino Leadership Camp, and partnered with USC, the Third Space Youth Institute, where students spend, these are residential programs where students are there for a week. And then we also did an outdoor education program for our students. And those are some of the pictures, and it really just, allows students to participate in these events that they wouldn't otherwise be able to enjoy. So we'll go to the next slide. And again, with mental health is a big need for our families. So we do have a licensed clinical social worker that partners with us, and we also refer families out to whatever services they might need. Okay, next. This is our parent and leadership and engagement component. So we do so many conferences, leadership institutes. We have a regional parent council. We meet monthly. And those are just some of the pictures to show. We really try to build their capacity and engage them in the educational, ensuring that they're involved in their students' education. Next. And then this is something we're very proud about. We look at the data for our students here, migrant ed students in Region 10, and that's the orange column that you see. So this was based on the graduation rates from 22-23, the four-year cohort rates. And as you can see, the orange column, those are our students here in LA County, the migrant students, and they have the highest graduation rate when compared to the migrant students in California, which is the green, the all student group in LA County, and also the all student group in California. So we are so, very proud of our students, and I believe all of the additional services and supports that we provide, the data shows that it's working for our students. And the same with LPAC. You can see the orange block, our students are outscoring the other student groups. So because of the migrant ed services that they're receiving, you can see that their overall LPAC, oral proficiency and written proficiency, they're higher than all the other student groups, which is very exciting. And obviously, with LPAC, we see that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but our students are definitely showing progress. We'll go to the next slide. And we also offer scholarships. So these are our students that received a scholarship last year. And, you know, we're very grateful that many of our students do go on to college. Our goal is to get them to graduate from high school, but we also have so many success stories of our students that go on um, to the university. And if you see the young man there, the Trojans SE, I got to visit him last month, and he is competing like statewide in hackathons. He just won one at Harvard. And it was just, you know, it's just so, you know, wonderful to be able to see how well our students are doing. And then we'll go to the next slide. And so these are the events that we are hoping that you'll be interested in. We do identification and recruitment outreach to see if you have migrant families in your district. So any community events, any school events that you might have, DLAC, ELAC, we would love to come and present and see which families may be eligible for these free services. We'll go to the next. So you're very familiar with FPM. This is, I don't need to tell you, but this is important. An important part of our program is we do have to ensure that we're meeting all the FPM requirements. And so one of those is ensuring that if you have migrant students in your district, that there is an INA ILP, which is an individual learning plan, annual needs assessment form in their CUME. So we're gonna, if your district was listed there as having migrant students, but you don't actually receive funding, we will be reaching out to see if you can help us with ensuring that we can meet this requirement by having those INA ILPs in the student CUMEs. So we'll go to the next slide. What can you do to help your students and find eligible students in your district? If you scan the QR code, we will follow up with you and see if we can, you know, schedule a one-on-one meeting, or if you would just want information, or if you just want your list of students, or if you would like to have us come present at a DLAC or ELAC or any school event that you may be having. That would be amazing. We have a team, an INR team that is, you know, ready, willing to go out and present, and we do all the work. So you just have to call us. We also have check-in meetings that you can join us. Our next one is next week. So on December 17th, you can join us and ask any questions. They're more like office hour meetings. Would love for you to come and join the other administrators, or schedule a one-on-one meeting with myself or with our coordinator here in the office. And then with that, let's see if there's any questions. We do have a Facebook page, you know, if you want to follow us there. And if you have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out. My email's there. My phone number, you can call me anytime, or fill out that QR code to request additional information. So I think that's it for me, Adrienne.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so great to have you present and share what great things are happening for our students. And again, the contact information is here, and also you can reach out to us and we can pass along the message to Myrna. So thank you so much. And again, what great, exciting results. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you,
Thanks.
team. Bye-bye.
And so now we're going to continue with the CARS winner release, and I will now turn it over to Debbie.
Thanks, Adrienne. What great work Migrant Ed does. So exciting to hear about the services for students and families. And now we're going over the excitement of the CON app and the winner release. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to begin here with the list of the forms that will be completed this winter, and as well as the timeline there at the bottom. And please note that this year they've removed pre-populated calculations from the following fields: school parent and family engagement field, LEA parent and family engagement field, indirect cost reservation field, and administrative reservation field. And the link on the bottom of the slide there is to the CDE's website, where you'll find information and the instructions for the winter release, which is a very critical piece in completing that. Next slide. So with Title I Part A, there are some required reservations, and the LEAs are required to reserve specific amounts of funds on identified programs. They also have the discretion to reserve additional Title I Part A funds for those allowable activities. The required reservations are for the following: parent and family engagement activities, students who are in homeless situations, and students who reside in local neglected and delinquent institutions. The Title I Part A LEA allocation and reservation form in CARS is here. And the school and parent family engagement field is no longer pre-populated with the 90% of the displayed parent and family reservation, which is the 1% of and the LEA allocation. The amount can be increased, as I said earlier, if the LEA chooses to. And again, just noting that this year the pre-population calculations were removed from the school parent and family engagement field, LEA parent family engagement field, indirect cost, and administrative reservation. Next slide, please. So with the parent family engagement reservation, an LEA with an allocation of if their Title I Part A allocation is $500,000 or more, you must reserve a minimum of 1% of that allocation of the fiscal year for the parent and family engagement activities. The parent and family reservation should be 1% of the allocation and subtracting the amount of the allocation to the private schools equitable services proportion. And distribution of the parent family reservation shared amount should go to both the school level and the LEA level of that 1%. So of that 1% at the school level, 90% of that 1% must be distributed to schools for the parent and family engagement. And the remaining 10% may be spent at the LEA level or may be allocated or distributed to the schools as well. Next slide. LEAs are allowed to increase the reservation for parent and family engagement if they so choose. The Title I Part A allocation and reservation form in CARS is designed to accommodate for that flexibility. If an LEA receives $500,000 or less in Title I Part A allocations in the fiscal year, the LEA is not required to reserve any specific amount of Title I Part A funds for parent and family engagement activities. Next slide. So for homeless children and youth reservation, the LEA must reserve Title I Part A funds for our homeless children and youth, including providing educationally related support services to children in shelters and other locations where children may reside. They need to provide services comparable to those services provided to students in non-Title I Part A funded schools. And for the neglected and delinquent reservation, funds must be reserved for services to serve all children to ensure that they receive high quality education and to close the achievement gap in meeting the challenging state standards and state academic standards. LEAs shall reserve funds as necessary to provide services comparable to children in schools funded under Title I Part A to serve children in the local institutions for neglect, and if appropriate, children in local institutions for delinquent children and neglected children in the community day programs. Next slide. And now for the private school reservation, expenditures for educational services and other benefits to eligible private schools children shall be equal to the proportion of funds allocated to participating school attendance areas based on the number of children from low-income families who attend private school. The proportional share of funds must be determined based on the total amount of funds received by the LEA prior to any allowable expenditures by the LEA. And funds allocated to an LEA for educational services on other benefits to eligible private schools children must be obligated in that fiscal year. and poverty measurements for equitable services. So an LEA shall have the final authority to calculate the number of children ages 5 through 17 who are from low-income families and attend private schools by either one of the following 4 methods. So listed here on the slide, you can use the same measure of low income used to count public school children. You can use the results of a survey to the extent possible to protect the identity of families in private school students. You can apply the low-income percentages of each participating public school attendance area to the number of private school children who reside in that school attendance area, or using an equated measure of low income correlated with the measure of low income used to count the public school children. Okay, and now we're switching over to Augustine with information regarding capital expenditures and equipment removal.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. So this morning, I'll be going over some updates and some requirements related to capital expenditures and equipment removal for Title I. So first, let's define what a capital expenditure is under Title I. So federal guidelines classify this as a non-expendable personal property with a useful life exceeding 1 year and an acquisition cost of $5,000 or more. Now, this was prior to October 1st of this year. Starting October 1st, the threshold has increased to $10,000 or more. This, of course, excludes taxes, shipping, and installation. This update will simplify processes for higher cost equipment purchases and also reduces the burden for smaller purchases. However, we still need to follow approval protocols diligently for anything exceeding this new amount of $10,000. So to comply with federal regulations, all equipment costing $5,000 or more prior to October or $10,000 or more from October and moving forward requires prior written approval. This means submitting the Title I Part A or Part D capital expenditure form along with a detailed vendor quote. Ensuring completeness and accuracy at this stage can prevent delays later. So let's review the request submission process. All capital expenditure equipment requests must include a complete Title I Part A or Part D capital expenditure request form and include the vendor quote when submitting. How many quotes, you might ask? Well, you only need to submit 1 quote from the vendor that you wish to purchase the equipment from. As the Title I grantee, it's your responsibility to do the research on the best price, model, and vendor to purchase the equipment from. If you have questions about a vendor or the type of equipment, you can always contact CDE ahead of time. You also have to make sure that the prior written approval request for equipment purchase meets the purpose of Title I funding and program requirements. Remember that the Title I Part A funding and program purpose that all capital expenditure requests must meet is to provide all children significant opportunity to receive fair, equitable, and high-quality education and to close the educational achievement gaps. So here we have an example of a completed capital expenditure request for pre-approval. Please fill out the form completely, making sure to leave no response boxes blank. If 1 or more lines do not apply, please put NA, not applicable, or 0 for any dollar amounts. If your request is for multiple pieces of equipment for 1 school, facility, or program site, only 1 form needs to be completed. The vendor quote should indicate multiple pieces of equipment for that 1 location. If the vendor quote is for multiple pieces of equipment and multiple schools, facilities, or program sites, each site will need an expenditure form completed. If the request form and the vendor quote do not align, CDE will email for more clarification or ask additional questions. So to prevent delays, make sure that you submit the fully completed capital expenditure form and vendor quote at the same time. So speaking of delays, here are the common reasons why requests are delayed. It could be incomplete forms, mismatch information between the form and the vendor quote, or vague descriptions as well. Additionally, approvals may be denied if requests don't align with Title I purposes, such as equitable access to a high-quality education. If your request is denied, you'll get a copy of the formal CDE letter stating that the request was denied and the reason or reasons why. You should keep this on file with the request as documentation for future audits or FPM reviews. You'll also receive an email notifying you why the request was denied based on one or more of the reasons on this slide. But let's shift our focus from our requests being denied to them being approved. So now what? Once your request is approved, keep all related documentation. This includes emails, approval letters, and vendor quotes on file for audits. Update your historical inventory records promptly. And remember, compliance with the reporting requirements doesn't end with approval. Let's talk about the removal process next. So when it comes to removing equipment, you must complete the Title I equipment removal form and gather any required reports, such as police and/or administrative reports. All Title I purchased equipment, regardless of dollar amount, must be reported prior to removal from the school, facility, or program site. Each equipment form must be fully completed and done by each site where the equipment was located and approved by CDE before the equipment can be removed. If equipment is damaged or broken, an administrative report must be submitted with the equipment removal form. If the equipment is lost, stolen, or missing, a police report and an administrative report must be submitted with the equipment removal form. So on these next two slides, we have a sample equipment removal form. As you can see, this form can be used for either Title I Part A or Title I Part D. You simply select a program using that dropdown. Again, thoroughness is crucial when completing this form. Please do not leave any blanks. Use NA or not applicable or 0 for any dollar amount. E-signatures, either directly on the PDF or via DocuSign, are allowed. Continuing with that removal form, please make sure to return one item per line and include the equipment ID, number or asset tag, your funding source, when the purchase was made, the cost, trade-in value, and finally, the reason for removal. Remember that if the reason for removal is damaged, an administrative report is required. And if an item is lost, missing, or stolen, both that administrative report and a police report are required. In your email submission, please indicate the name of the school, facility, or program site that the equipment is being removed from. Make sure that the supplemental documentation is included with the completed equipment removal form. And to prevent delays in the process, please do not send the documents separately. If your forms are returned to you for more or missing information, please respond to the request to prevent delays in that approval and the ability to remove equipment. Once your equipment removal form has been approved and signed by CDE, you can remove, transfer, sell, e-waste, trash, or trade in the equipment. Remember, keep all copies of your request on hand with the supporting documentation for audit and/or FPM purposes. And finally, make sure to immediately update your historical equipment inventory to reflect those changes approved by CDE. And here real quickly on this slide, we have a sample supporting document. In this case, it's a police report for an item that might be lost, missing, or stolen. The incident report from police should contain the LEA name and address, the date of the incident and report as well, and the school, facility, program name and address. So to conclude my section, staying compliant with these processes help ensure that federal funds are used effectively and equitably. To locate the approved Title I Part A and/or Part D capital expenditure and equipment removal forms from CDE, you can find them on the Title I Capital Expenditures webpage, and that link is provided here on this slide for your reference. Thank you for your time today. Happy holidays. I'll hand it off to Adrian.
Thank you, Augustine. So today we'll take a look at some federal program requirements and some common non-compliance findings for homeless education and private schools equitable services. We wanted to let you know before we start that is that all of the 24-25 program instruments are now posted on the CDE website. The Civil Rights Review, the Neglected or Delinquent, and the Title IV Student Support and Academic Enrichment Instruments can be found on the link at the bottom of the slide. We also want to remind you about CDE's box that you can find the link down below on the right side in the bottom. And this houses the 24-25 FPM resources and presentations from the FPM virtual training that was held in August. And so a lot of times when you're looking for samples, or you're looking for presentations or specific information about program requirements, you really want to tab that FPM box and be able to look in there and go and look in the program. And you often find a lot of things that are helpful and pertinent to your work, but are not posted on CDE's website. So again, we want to make sure that you are aware that this is a great resource. And so again, the link there at the bottom. So Debbie spoke about the homeless reservations in the CONAP. And so here is the Homeless Education Program instrument. And as you can see, there are 18 items related to homeless education. You can see that there are many requirements that you have to be in compliance with. And so again, making sure that this is definitely on your radar, and the processes that you have in place naturally will adhere to all the requirements. During a past FPM, CE3 was a common finding of non-compliance. CE3 is about the LEA liaison and their duties. And specifically, what was found out of compliance was the school personnel, including principals and other school leaders, attendance officers, teachers, enrollment personnel, and other instructional support personnel who provide services to the homeless children and youth and their families, that they all need to receive professional development and other support. And so the finding was that the LEA was unable to provide evidence that they had provided the professional development to all of those student groups and, the educational partners. And so in order to resolve this item, the LEA needed to submit documentation that all the professional development was held. So they had to upload, after they had provided all the professional development, they needed to provide the agendas, the calendars, the certificates if they were given, sign-in sheets, and minutes if someone kept them. And this was, again, to demonstrate that the school personnel had received the professional development. So again, when you reflect on your homeless education program, do you collect these? Do you have a process that collects all of these documents that need to be, to memorialize that something has taken place, which is the professional development? So again, looking at reflecting on your own processes. When we look at private schools, equitable services, you will be able to find in the private schools equitable services addressed in these 4 programs. So you have Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and these are the instruments. Specifically for each of those programs, for Title I, you will find equitable services and the requirements and evidence requested in CE3, in CE17. For Title II, you're going to find it in the SEI 8. For Title III, it is connected to CE3. So when the reviewer is looking at Title I, they'll also want to see the evidence for Title III. And then Title IV, you're looking at SSAE 6, Equitable Services, and SSAE 7, Federal Transferability, in case you have transferred funds. The private schools need to know about that. So some common findings for private schools is often the consultation and participation. So for the respective programs, you would find that for CE3, SEI 8, and SSAE 6. And this is looking at the consultations and the participation that have taken place with the private schools. So here, the specific finding was that the LEA shall, meaning must, maintain and provide to the state educational agency, that's CDE, a written affirmation signed by officials of the participating private schools that consultation had occurred. So the finding that has taken place was the district was unable to provide evidence of the dated communication to the private schools regarding eligibility for Title I, II, III, or IV services. They also were missing documents showing how the LEA had consulted with the private schools regarding the participation in federal programs. And additionally, there were missing signed and dated affirmations by the private school officials. So, if you have 6 schools that were participating, you need to have the documentation for all 6 of those private schools. So it's not a some, it's a shall have all and must have all. So the resolution for this item is that the district needed to submit the documentation that the communication took place between the district and the private school regarding the eligibility, and also those signed affirmations by the school officials of the private school that the consultation did occur. So again, having all of those documents created and utilized and sent out and received back is part of your obligation for implementing your federal programs. Another finding was in CE 17, the LEA public control of funds. And so here, the requirement is that the LEA shall maintain control of funds used to provide services to eligible students. And this also includes holding the title to materials, equipment, and property that's purchased through these funds of Title I and Title III. So the LEA, for the finding, the LEA was unable to provide evidence that the Title I program services were administered to eligible students. And then also, too, the summary budget and expenditure reports that were utilizing these funds did not reflect the services provided to students. So oftentimes, it's the requirement is that you're implementing your program to these students, and it's not a pot of money. In our equitable services training, we always say it's not a pot of money, it's a program that you're implementing with the eligible students. And so therefore the evidence needs to be aligned to that, so that you're not just seeing a series of fiscal requisitions and expenditures that are unrelated or not tied to students. So again, it's not a pot of money, but you're implementing the program to the eligible students. And so in order to resolve this item, the LEA needs to submit all the required evidence that's requested for CE 17, including the funding allocations for private schools, the summary budget and expenditure reports for private schools, and any other third-party contracts and invoices showing that services were provided to the students with the Title I funds. And now Rachel will continue the meeting by sharing about the Comprehensive School Safety Plan.
Thank you, Adrienne, and good morning, everyone. So as Adrienne mentioned, in this next section, we'll be taking a look at the requirements for comprehensive school safety plans, and that's including some new requirements that just took effect on September 30th and will be operative beginning on January 1st, 2025. So as you all know, California Education Code requires every kindergarten through grade 12 school, public and public charter, and that includes community and court schools, to develop and maintain a comprehensive school safety plan that's designed to address campus risks, prepare for emergencies, and create a safe and secure learning environment for students and school personnel. And so Education Code also requires that all school staff be trained on the components of the school safety plan. And so really, this means that the updated school safety plans should be reviewed with all certificated and classified staff and practiced regularly by all staff. And so you can find the requirements related to comprehensive school safety plans in Education Code sections 32280 through section 32289.5. The development of the Comprehensive School Safety Plan is a responsibility of the School Site Council. However, the School Site Council has the option to delegate this responsibility to a School Safety Planning Committee. So if the school site council decides to delegate this responsibility, then the school safety planning committee must meet specific composition requirements that are specified in education code. And so this would include the principal or his or her designee, one teacher, one parent whose child attends the school, one classified employee, and then any other members if desired. And so it's also important to note that if a school is not required to have a school site council, so for example, it's a non-Title I school, then this responsibility would also be fulfilled by a school safety planning committee made up of the members just noted. And so when developing or updating the comprehensive school safety plan each year, the school site council or the safety planning committee is required to consult with a representative from a law enforcement agency, a fire department, and other first responder entities. And then if any updates are made to the plan during the school year, then those updates must also be shared with those entities just indicated. And if a school district has fewer than 2,501 units of average daily attendance, the district has the option to develop one district-wide comprehensive school safety plan for all schools within the district. And so in that case, the district-wide safety plan would be developed by the district rather than a school site council or school safety planning committee. So schools must update and adopt the school safety plan by March 1st of each year. And prior to adopting the plan, the school site council or safety planning committee must present the plan at a public meeting at the school site to allow for public opinion regarding the plan. And so this may occur at a regular parent meeting. There are also notification requirements in education code that specify that the school site council or safety planning committee must notify in writing specific persons and entities, if available, of that public meeting. The plan must also be submitted to the school district for approval. And so there is no required deadline in statute for the school district to approve the comprehensive school safety plan. However, the CDE recommends that plans be approved by the school district at the next board meeting after adoption of the plan by the school, or as soon as practicable before October 15th. Another important reminder is that the approved comprehensive school safety plan must be readily available for public inspection if requested. And so some considerations for this include posting it on the school or district website, or maintaining a binder with a copy of the plan and related materials for inspection at the school site administration office. However, how you decide to make the plan available for public inspection is a local decision, so you'll want to develop some sort of internal process, including identifying appropriate school staff to assist with this process. And then also just keep in mind that any sensitive tactical response information, that should be redacted and not made available to the public. And lastly, school districts and county offices must notify the CDE by October 15th of each year of any schools that have not complied with the safety plan requirements that are specified in Education Code 32281. So there are many required components that must be included in school safety plans, including several new components. And you can find all of the required components in Education Code 32282. And so everything listed on this slide, as well as the next slide, are components that have been required to be included in the safety plans for several years. So these are not the new components. And so here we just see a continuation of the required components that, again, have been in place for some time. And so I'm not going to read through all of these, as we really want to focus on what some of those new requirements are. So in addition to the required components that were just indicated on the previous two slides, there are some required components that were added last year and took effect in January 2024 due to legislation. So as a result of Senate Bill 323, there were several new requirements that were added related to disaster procedures and adaptations for pupils with disabilities. So for example, disaster procedures must now include adaptations for pupils with disabilities in accordance with the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504 of the Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Also, per Senate Bill 671, another requirement added is that the school safety plan must include procedures to assess and respond to reports of any dangerous, violent, or unlawful activity that is being conducted or threatened to be conducted at the school, at an activity sponsored by the school, or on a school bus serving the school. And then also per Senate Bill 10, for schools serving students in grades 7 through 12, the school safety plan must include the development of a protocol in the event a student is suffering or is reasonably believed to be suffering from an opioid overdose. And so as mentioned, these components took effect this past January. So these components should already be included in the school safety plans. There are also several new requirements that were added to Education Code due to recent legislation. And these new requirements were effective as of September 30th, 2024, and will be operative January 1st, 2025. And so for the first one, Senate Bill 153 amended Education Code to require schools to include an instructional continuity plan as part of the school safety plan beginning July 1st, 2025, in order to establish communication with pupils and their families when in-person instruction is disrupted due to emergency situations that force school closures. And some components that must be included in the instructional continuity plan include procedures for pupil engagement and procedures to establish two-way communication with pupils and their families. And so the CDE is required to develop and post guidance on instructional continuity plans on the CDE website on or before March 1st, 2025. So stay tuned for additional information on that requirement. So another new requirement is that school safety plans must include procedures for responding to an individual experiencing a sudden cardiac arrest or similar life-threatening medical emergency while on school grounds. And so this component is required to be added to the school safety plan when the plan is next reviewed and updated on or after July 1st, 2025. Then another new requirement that was added has to do with active shooter drills. And so if a school safety plan includes procedures to prepare for active shooters or other armed assailants by conducting a drill, then there are specific procedures related to the drill that the school must implement. So for example, one requirement is that the school must provide the ability for parents or guardians to opt their child or children out of the drills. And so all of the procedures that schools must comply with related to the active shooter drills can be found in Education Code 32282K. And then the last new component requires schools in high-risk fire zones to include procedures related to fire safety and evacuation in the school safety plan. And so this new component is required to be implemented beginning with the 2026-27 fiscal year. So the CDE has a number of resources available to support schools in developing and updating school safety plans. And so that includes their comprehensive school safety plan webpage and also a compliance tool for comprehensive school safety plans. And so we've included the link to their webpage and the tool on the slide. But please keep in mind that their webpage has not yet been updated to reflect the new requirements that were just added to Education Code last year and this year. And then the compliance tool was last updated in May, and so it does not include the new requirements that took effect this year. And so we anticipate additional resources to be added to the tools offered, and we will keep you posted as those become available. And so that concludes this section. I will now turn it over to Laurel.
Thanks, Rachel. That's some great information about every vice principal's favorite duty. So now we'll continue on with the upcoming deadline for the LREBG Interim Expenditure Report. Let's start by reviewing the timeline for LREBG activities. It's important to note on this timeline that this year, LEAs must develop and conduct a needs assessment. Also, LREBG funds are to be included in the 2025-26 LCAP if they're not fully expended by the end of this school year. In addition, LEAs may expend funds through the 2027-28 school year until June 30th, 2028. Today, we're going to provide some information about the expenditure report, which is due in a couple of days, along with the web posting requirement. LEAs receiving LREBG funds are required to submit their interim expenditure report using GMART, as I said, by no later than December 15th. A template that contains the information for completing the report is linked to this slide. This should only be used as a resource to support completion, as the report needs to be submitted through GMART. CDE staff encourage LEAs to email the LREBG office if they do not have their GMART login information, using the email linked to this slide. The interim expenditure report needs to include LREBG expenditures from both the 2022-23 and 2023-24 fiscal years. The interim expenditures must be posted on the LEA website by no later than December 15th as well. The 2023-24 fiscal year ended on June 30th, 2024, so no expenditures after that date should be included. In order to support districts in fulfilling the requirement of making funds publicly available on the LEA website, there is an option of downloading the report. After submission of the report in GMART, select Export Expenditure Report to create an Excel document. This export feature is located at the bottom of the GMART screen. This slide and the next contain frequently asked questions regarding report completion and submission. Even if no LREBG funds were spent during the 2 fiscal years, the LEA must still log into GMART and report that $0 were spent during the 2 years. The California Budget Act of 2024 amended Ed Code to include using LREBG funds to provide professional development on the 2023 Math Framework and English Language Arts English Language Development Framework, and the requirement of conducting the needs assessment. Since the interim expenditure report includes expenditures from the 2 previous years, the new allowable uses of funds are not included as expenditure categories in the interim expenditure report. Finally, this slide contains some of the resources to support LREBG activities, including the link to GMART and instructions for using GMART. We will be providing more information regarding the requirement to include unspent LREBG funds and activities in the 2025-26 LCAP in upcoming state and federal program directors meetings and in our 2-day LCAP workshop in January. Speaking of LCAP, I'll hand it off to Jeannie and Helen to provide some LCAP updates.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Helen Choi, and Jeannie and I are excited to share some valuable resources with you today and provide updates on the LCAP. So I'm pleased to share that our LACO LCAP resource page has been updated for the 25-26 LCAP. You can access the Canvas page through the link on this slide. Additionally, I encourage you to visit the LACO website at laco.edu to explore the Canvas site. The web page also includes the links to the SFP Directors page, the workshops, the training sessions, and the recorded meetings from the previous years. So to help you navigate, there is a link to a short tutorial video that's available on this slide, demonstrating how to access the LACO web page and how to locate the information easily. So once you access the Canvas page, you'll find a variety of resources from LACO and CDE designed to be as convenient as possible for you to use. Our LACO resources include the updated 25-26 LCAP timeline and the LCAP template with embedded instructions. And we've also created a presentation highlighting the changes from the 24-25 LCAP to the current LCAP. Additionally, you'll find sample responses for the increased or improved section, along with updates to several metrics, which Jeannie will review shortly. We are committed to continuously updating and expanding these resources, so please check the page regularly for new materials. Next, on our resource page, we've included key CDE resources to support the development of the 25-26 LCAP. While this is not an exhaustive list of all CDE resources, we've carefully selected those that are most relevant and essential. The links provided will always be aligned with those on the CDE website to ensure consistency and accuracy. And as Laurel mentioned earlier, LREBG is one of our new requirements for the 25-26 LCAP. You'll find a link to detailed LREBG information as well as resources addressing ongoing requirements for equity multiplier schools. And finally, information on the mid-year update report is included. LEAs are required to present this report, which includes an annual update to the LCAP and the LCFF budget overview for parents at a regularly scheduled meeting of the governing board or body of the LEA on or before February 28th of each year. So can you believe it? It's in just 2 months, right? So to support this process, we've included sample mid-year report board presentation and a sample board agenda item. Please remember that mid-year report must include all available mid-year outcome data related to metrics identified in the current year's LCAP, all available mid-year expenditure and implementation data for actions outlined in the current year's LCAP. The metrics reported here are likely closely aligned to the measurement and reporting outcomes for the 25-26 LCAP. And this provides a perfect transition for Jeannie to delve deeper into this component. So over to you, Jeannie.
Thanks so much, Helen, and good morning, everyone. Next in our update this morning, we're going to focus on the measuring and reporting results section in the LCAP template for the 25-26 LCAP, and really focus on how this section is part of the annual LCAP process. So for the new LCAP, LEAs will be adding the data for their year 1 outcome, and new this year, they'll be calculating the current difference from baseline. You may recall the column for the difference from baseline was added to the template last year. So let's take a look at this format. So here we see where data for metrics included in the approved LCAP goals will be reported in the 25-26 LCAP. The first 3 columns in the screenshot of the measuring and reporting results section include the metric number and metric being measured, along with the baseline information. And the 5th column includes the target for year 3 outcome from the approved LCAP. So new this year, LEAs will be adding the year 1 outcome and then calculating the difference between the year 1 outcome and the baseline data for each metric. So on the next two slides, we'll provide some examples. Here is a look at some sample data and how it will be reported in the upcoming LCAP. The data for the examples on this slide and the next use local metrics from State Priority 6 that addresses students, parents, and teachers' sense of safety and school connectedness. This slide includes the student metric for sense of connectedness and the student metric for sense of safety, as well as the metric for teachers' sense of connectedness. Highlighted are the data elements that will be included and used to calculate current difference from the baseline data. These calculations are very straightforward in these examples. For example, the first row in the example identifies the metric for student connectedness using the local student survey results. You can see the baseline reports the 23-24 school year, the percentage of students that strongly agree that the school engages and supports school connectedness. First, in the baseline column, we see overall, meaning across all grade spans, 70% of students strongly agreed on the survey. And then the breakdown by grade span indicates 80% at elementary, 50% at middle school, and 55% at high school. For the year one outcome data in green reported for this survey question, the data reported comes from the 24-25 school year. So in year one, the overall percentage indicates 80%, which when compared to the baseline of 70% is a growth of 10%. And you see that indicated in red in the final column. This final column, the difference for the overall student group shows a growth of 10%. In our next example, we add the metrics for teachers' sense of safety and the parent metrics for connectedness and sense of safety. Each includes the survey question in the metric column and the baseline information for overall data collection, as well as the breakdown by grade span, just as it was in the approved LCAP. New information, again, is included in the year one outcome for each of the data elements, and then the related increase or decrease is reported in the final column. So here we wanted to share two components that are really related. And below the measuring and reporting results table are the 4 goal analysis prompts for each goal in the LCAP. And we're sharing these to highlight the relationship between the two. We draw your attention to the third prompt that addresses effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the specific actions to date in making progress toward the goal. For this response, reflecting on the difference reported from the baseline for the metrics may be a source of data to inform the analysis of the goal in the current year LCAP. For some metrics, the LEA may also have more current local data as well as input from educational partners that may also inform their analysis. In terms of completing the measuring and reporting results section and using data to inform the annual goal analysis, we offer some questions and considerations from the LCAP timeline resource for your LCAP annual process. And a key point to stress here is the process in planning what information needs to be gathered to address all metrics in the LCAP and how the information will be used to inform the goal analysis. For example, who is involved in your data collection process for each of the LCAP goals, and how are they involved? And so, for example, considering the metrics that we just reviewed this morning for Priority 6, the climate surveys will need to be administered to the student, staff, and parent groups in order for data to be reported and reflected on in this year's goal analysis. So in this case, it may be reasonable to identify staff with responsibility for survey administration and data collection for school climate surveys. And other staff may be identified to support accessing additional forms of data that are being reported for other metrics in specific goals in the LCAP. And so now, time for a quiz. One question quiz. Today's question is, where are the year one outcomes and current difference from baseline reported? You can see the choices on the slide. Total planned expenditure table. B is 2025-26 LCAP measuring and reporting results table for each metric in the approved 24-25 LCAP. C is by February 28th, available data related to metrics in the 24-25 adopted LCAP goal is presented in the mid-year update. And D, the 24-25 LCAP posted on the LEA website and at the dashboard. So let's go to the answer. And yes, many of you picked the answer B. And I noticed that some of you considered C. We thought about that too when designing the question. And so LEAs might consider sharing available outcome information for the mid-year report in a format similar to the measuring and reporting results. However, this format is not required as it is a local decision how the LEA designs their presentation for the mid-year report. Moving on, I want to share 2 additional components of LCAP support being offered this year. And our team, along with our partners in business advisory services, are again reaching out to district LCAP teams to support their annual LCAP process. We have found our partnership supports districts to access resources and to address requirements in the LCAP. And so your district LCAP program and fiscal contacts and superintendents will be receiving invitations by email to schedule an initial meeting this January. We really look forward to meeting with each district and to provide assistance with their LCAP process. We really have found that it is helpful when a team includes district leadership, program, fiscal, and assessment personnel. So we're looking forward to connecting with all of our districts in January. And then on the next slide, we have upcoming in January, and you heard about this from Laurel, our LACO LCAP trainings. And these workshops are presented by our office in conjunction with our accountability and data literacy unit and business advisory services. It's a 2-part series, and they will be offered Tuesday, January 28th. These are in the morning at 10 a.m. and Thursday, January 30th. We look forward to seeing your team at these workshops, and the registration link is included at the bottom of the slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Helen for some more support.
Thank you. And I have an exciting news to share with you all today. We received so many inquiries around when is the ELCAP ready. I'm excited to share that our LACO ELCAP system is now ready. Woohoo! Right? Happy holidays. So in the next few slides, these are for LEAs that use the ELCAP system to develop the 24-25 LCAP. And if this applies to your LEA, you'll be able to roll over relevant information into the 25-26 LCAP. And this includes the plan summary, such as the general information and the annual performance section, as well as the goals and actions, which will carry over in the 24-25 goals, metrics, baselines, year 3 outcome targets, and all actions. And additionally, prompt 1 and 2 of the increased or improved services will roll over, along with the data for the annual update table, the contributing actions annual update table, and the LCFF carryover table. So the following slides provide a quick overview of the steps to roll over the plan for those LEAs that, again, use the LCAP system to develop the 24-25 LCAP. First, you need to log in to the LCAP system, and if you do not already have an account, then you need to register as a new user. If you're a new user, you'll be able to be, you'll also be needed to add as a user to be approved to the approved 24-25 plan in order to complete the rollover. If there is not someone in your district who can add you to the approved 24-25 plan, so for example, if someone from your district left and they were the only one with the access to the plan, you can contact one of the LCAP coordinators for assistance with this process. Once you're in the system, you'll click on the Manage Plans on the left menu bar under LCAP. The next step is to select the approved 24-25 plan. What you see on this screen will vary by user depending on how many drafts were created in the LCAP system, but you should only see one approved plan for the 24-25 year, and you can confirm this by looking at the third column, which indicates the plan year, and the last column, which shows the status. Once you've found the approved 24-25 plan, click on the plan title. Once you've selected the approved 24-25 plan, you'll see this screen that shows the plan index of the approved 24-25 LCAP. At the top of the screen, you will see the rollover button, and so you would just need to click on this button to roll over the plan. After clicking the rollover button, you should also see a message in green stating that the plan rolled over successfully. And then you will need to go back to the Manage Plan section and find the rolled over plan. Again, you can find the Manage Plan tab on the left menu bar. In the Manage Plan section, the rolled over plan will have the word rollover and the date and the time of the rollover plan, rollover in the plan title, and the status will now be draft. As you can see in the sample on the screen, you can edit this plan title to remove the word rollover and the date and the time by going on to the title page section in the plan index. Then you are on your way to complete the 25-26 LCAP. So where can you find how to do all this? The LCAP user guide and how to upload LCAP for non-LCAP users are now available on both on our LCAP system and on our Canvas resource page. To access this guide in the LCAP, you would just click on the LCAP instructions in the left menu bar. This will take you to the LCAP resource file screen where you will be able to find, you'll be able to access the user guide. And on our Canvas page under legal resources, the user guide is already there. And the user guide is intended to provide a quick overview of the features and the functionality of the LCAP. In addition to the user guide, it's important that you reference the CDE LCAP template instructions to ensure that you're fully addressing the LCAP requirements and the prompts. Remember, the prompts are for the readers and the instructions are for the LCAP writers. So if you're just responding to the prompts on the screen in the LCAP system and not referring to the actual LCAP instructions, you may not be addressing all that is required for the prompts. And that is all for the LCAP rollover. And finally, this slide, we have a reminder for some of the upcoming deadlines. First, again, as Laurel mentioned, the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant requires that LEAs report the interim expenditures to the CDE by December 15th, and with the reports made publicly available on their websites. And for CalPADS, the Fall 1 certification deadline is December 13th, with amendments allowed from December 17th through January 24th. And in the 24-25 CONAP winter release runs from December 1st to January 15th, with amendments accepted through February 15, 2025. And federal stimulus reporting for ESSER 2, ESSER 3, ARPC, HCY2, and ELOG opens December 16th and closes January 15th, 2025. And this only applies to LEAs with approved liquidation extensions. And CMDC data for reporting period 3 is due by January 31st. And LEAs must publish and submit their SARC to CDE by February 1st, 2025, with board approval required prior to the submission. Wow, a lot coming up. Happy holidays. And this concludes our presentation for today. And we want to thank each of you for your dedication and hard work. And very timely that we are also able to give you the gift of time for about 10 minutes. So please mark your calendars because as in January, we have program directors meeting on Thursday, January 23rd. And as we mentioned, again, we have our LCAP trainings, January 28th and the 30th. And if you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat. We got a few minutes. And before you log off, please take a moment to share any feedback that you have. We carefully review all your feedback and use your suggestions to improve our future sessions. We truly appreciate any input that you can provide. And again, thank you for joining us today. And on behalf of LCAP and State and Federal Programs Unit, we wish you all a happy holiday season and a wonderful new year. Thank you.